Alright, class, first off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, today we are going to be talking about how our country was after the American Revolution. Basically, now we've won our independence, so we got to the point of now what? How do we get this country going? How does this thing work out? So, we're going to look at that today. Okay. So, here is your warm-up picture. Let me move this little video thing up here a little bit. Okay, so the first question asks you, in your own words, what's going on here? So look at the people, look at their expression, look at the item in the middle. What is it? What's its expression? What the people are saying? Things like that. Okay. The second question asks you, because remember, we're starting a government, right? We're starting a government brand new. Of all the things that these guys talk about, no president, no executive agency, no judiciary, no tax base, no army funding, no navy funding, weak foreign policy, no trading policy. Um, of all those things, what are the two things, two, okay, two things that you feel every country needs to have from the get go? Top two. Okay, so all those things, what are the top two things you feel a country needs to have when it's starting off? Okay, so pause the video, go ahead and give your answers. But again, remember, two you feel are the most important things that any country starting off is going to need. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And we're pausing the video in three, two, one. Okay, so before the war ended, every state wrote up their own constitution. Remember, the constitution is basically supposed to be about what is your state about? What are you guys all about? Virginia was the first ones to start writing it up. They're like, let's get ahead, let's start writing. But Massachusetts is the first state to actually finish their constitution. Uh, and their Constitution would be the model for other states. So it's basically like if you ever, you've been in school, you've been in school since you were a kid. When somebody does an assignment so good, you're like, I'm not going to copy your paper. I just want to see if my answers are right. So can I see your paper real quick? Let me just look. Oh yeah, okay. You know, but really you're copying. That's exactly what these colonies did. They looked at Massachusetts Constitution. They go, "Oh, we just want to check it out, see how it is," and they're looking at it going, "Yeah, this is good. So let's basically copy this." And that's what they did. They copied Massachusetts. Now, their constitution called for several things. One, that the government have a separation of power between three branches: the executive, the legislative, and judicial. Okay, so think of it like a tree, and then there's three branches. Okay, executive, legislative, judicial. Now, the legislative branch, that branch would have its own two separation, two different type of branches within that branch. This is known as bicameral. If you remember your Greek words, bi means two, cameral means chambers or house. So two chambers or two houses. That's what bicameral means. Okay. And on top of that, Massachusetts Constitution guarantees rights to individuals. And one of these rights is going to, in a sense, get the ball rolling on a particular issue that plagues our country. All right, so here's my first question to you. Why do you think the founding fathers thought the separation between church and state should be implemented in our country? So, in other words, why do you think they thought it was a good idea to separate church from state? Now, when I say church, I don't mean one specific religion. or one specific church. We're talking about all religions, all churches. Why do you think they wanted them to separate it from one another and not really mingling um, amongst them? So why do you think that? So think about it. I want you guys, if you're kind of stuck, think about this. How many churches, how many, just say religions, do we have in this country? Okay. Think about individual freedoms that we have, and what are some things that churches, or sorry, religions tell people, hey, these are what you have to do. So think about that. Think about individual freedoms, individual liberties, and that should really help you out. Okay, so pause the video, write your part, but we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So the thing is, the belief of individual liberties, individual freedoms, led to the notion of separation between church and state. Now, what does that mean? Basically, they said, you know what? Some churches, they say you have to go to church on Sunday. Some of them say you have to observe, like, Yom Kippur. You know, it's a Jewish holiday. You can't be doing anything at a certain time of the day. Some of that you're supposed to be fasting. Um, Not everyone does that religion. So why are you going to force that religion's laws on people if that's not their religion? You know, some states had an official church. Some would say, "Oh, we are this our state is the official church of the Quakers." Okay, some might be our official church is Baptist. Well, does that mean everyone in that state has to be a Quaker or a Baptist? No. But the thing is, the church was like, or these states were like, we are the official church of, such and such place, whatever church it may be. And so they're like, no, that doesn't sound right. And also, some states were actually collecting taxes and giving it to the church. Here's the problem with that. Let's say that um, the Quakers, let's say that a state, their official religion is Quakers. If not everyone in that state is a Quaker, but the state is collecting taxes on everybody. So why is their money going to a religion or to a church that they don't belong to, they don't care about? It's not theirs. That's what the founding fathers realized. No, that's wrong. You shouldn't, your money, your tax money should not go to a church that you don't attend to, you know. So several things started to change. Okay, voting rights in some states started to change. Before it used to be if you owned property, you could vote. If you're a male who owned property, owned some type of land, you could vote. Now it went to, did you pay your taxes? Okay, then you can vote. Did you pay your taxes? No, then you can't vote. So the amount of people who could vote now stretched more. Still, granted, it was still just white males, um, and women still not allowed to vote. African Americans are still not allowed to vote, so there's still that. Now, this guy you're never going to hear in the history books, but he changed things forever. His name was Quack Walker, and yes, that's his real name, Quack. Quack Walker took legal action against his slave owner. Okay, now he's in Massachusetts, and he took his owner to court saying, I am no longer a slave. And he argued. The state's constitution says there's a part called inherent liberties, meaning when you're born free. And he's like, well, if I'm born free, then what am I doing as a slave? That makes no sense. You say I'm free, I'm born free. Well, right now I'm in chains. Right now I'm being owned by somebody. So he went to court and he won his freedom. And shortly after that, slavery was outlawed or abolished in Massachusetts. So, because of Quack Walker going to court, a lot of people who were slaves in Massachusetts became free. Okay. Now, again, not every single African American was given their freedom, and not every woman was given political rights. Okay, because again, things are starting to change, liberties are starting to be given, but women did gain something. They gained two big things. One, they were actually granted divorces. Now, that nowadays that doesn't sound big, like, oh, whoop, whoop, woman got a divorce, so what? Well, back then it was seen as a bad thing, and back then it had to be under certain circumstances that a woman could get a divorce. She couldn't just go to the courthouse and get a divorce. No, that's not how it worked back then. But now they were granted more divorces. You know, some women they were basically told, "Hey, you're getting old. You need to get married quick. No one's gonna want you. You're almost 22. Hey, you better hurry up and get married. You know, you're already an old lady. You know." So that's the kind of stuff they would tell women. Some women did get married to a guy. They figured, hey, this is my love, this is my life, la la la. And then life stuff happens. The guy changes, and he's no longer the man that he was before. Now he's abusive, things like that. You know, he drinks, spends all his money um, for whatever reason. So now women were given, um, granted freedom to get divorces, as well as get educated. Women were now allowed to not just learn basic math, you know, they were also learned advanced math. You know, not too advanced, but just enough. Okay. So it is not huge leaps and bounds, but it is progress. And progress is progress. Okay. Now, the only way African Americans could get the right to vote, or sorry, not the right to vote, sorry, to get their freedom, excuse me, was if they joined the army during the Revolutionary War. If they served for 1 year without desertion, meaning that they didn't run away, then they would get their freedom. Okay. Now again, some states right away they outlawed slavery, got rid of it completely. Some states like Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, there were some free black people, but a large majority of them were slaves, and they could get their freedom if they fought for a year. So here is my next question to you. If you were a slave back then, and you were told you get your freedom if you fought in a war for minimum 1 year without any attempt of desertion, meaning when you're out there firing, you could not just like, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna run. You can't do that. Even if you're trying to hide, no, you can't do that. They would see you as you're trying to escape, you're trying to leave, and the deal would be over. But if your commander gives the retreat signal, then yeah, you could turn around and run. All right. So do you think you could do that? Do you think you could be involved in a war, a pretty bad war, that your side's losing a lot of battles for your freedom? What do you think? Yes, no, maybe. All right. The writing prompts on the bottom to help you out. So go ahead and use that. Okay. So pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, March 2nd, 1781, all the colonies slash states ratified the Articles of Confederation. This is basically the first blueprint of how they want the country to run. Okay. Now, this is the document that says this is what the government can and cannot do. Overall, the government had limited power. There was no separation of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial. Each state got one vote. And this is the part that really, really hurt them. They didn't have the power to tax. They couldn't force people, citizens, states to pay taxes. Now, because they couldn't pay their taxes, um, their war debts started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that created a recession in our country. Now, here's the thing. Um, at this time, because of the Articles of Confederation, our government is basically like a little baby with no teeth. So when they try to put pressure on people, it's like they're biting your finger with no teeth. No, it's just all gum, like a little baby. It's like, oh, that's so cute. Look at they're trying to hurt me. Oh, adorable. They would literally go to people and say, hey, you owe the government like $500 in taxes. Um, could you pay some of that now? Something, $20, $10, 15, something, five. We'll take it. Okay, they were that desperate, that bad. Okay. Now some states were like, why don't we just print more money? We'll print more money and then we'll pay off our debts that way and everything will be fine. That's like the stupidest idea you could ever do. Okay. Now, thing is, why is that stupid? Well, because thing is, when there's more of something, whatever it may be, doesn't matter if it's money or you know um, bathroom tissue or oranges. It doesn't matter. Whenever there's a lot of something, the value of it goes down. All right. So think of it like this: if there was bananas everywhere, right? Would it cost 55 cents a pound, or would it be down to like a penny a pound? And it would be about a penny a pound because you can get it anywhere. It might get a penny for 3 pounds. If there's so much and you can get it anywhere, the price is going to be really low because those guys want to sell it before it spoils. They want to make money. Um, and in this case, back in the day, you could take your dollar bill. You can literally get like your dollar bill and go to the bank and say, I want to trade this in for gold. And they would give you the gold. Okay. Every state had their own dollar, so the value of them were different. Okay. So think of it like this: if there was $10, right, and each dollar was worth 1 pound of gold, what would happen if I'm the state and I make, instead of, you know, $10, I'm making $10,000. I print out 10,000 of them. So that 1 pound of gold for that $1 is now going to be, for every dollar, is going to be tiny bit, maybe some tiny little nugget of gold. I mean, we're talking tiny. Why? Because now I have to honor all those dollar bills that I printed. And that means the gold amount got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller the more money you print out. Okay? I know it sounds like an easy thing. Oh, we'll just print out more money. That's the worst, dumbest thing that a government can do, is print more money. So here's the thing. The government needs money. So what they decided to do is they decided to tax whiskey. This led to the Shays Rebellion because the thing is, a lot of farmers, they relied on that whiskey to make a living. But if there's a tax on it, that's going to make it harder on them. And in January 1787, Daniel Shay, who basically lost his farm to bankruptcy, um, he and 1,200 other men who basically were in the same boat, they were like protesting these new taxes. They would actually catch um, the tax collector people. Now, these guys are just doing their job, right? They would get them, tar and feather them, like I explained in class. Tar and feathering, if you ever seen tar when they make new roads or they fix up the roads, that smell, that nasty smell, and you see that like black sticky stuff, that's the tar. And they would pour it on a person's body. That stuff, once it attaches to skin, it's attached to the skin. and it gets dry pretty quick. So they would put feathers on them, the person. And imagine you go like this, move your wrist like that. If it cracked, it would crack your skin open. And when you peeled off the tar, you're taking part of your skin off. So it was painful thing. But these guys didn't care. They wanted to attack the government. Well, they couldn't attack the government as a whole yet, so they went after the taxpayers. Or sorry, the tax collectors. So word gets around that these guys are going around Massachusetts and causing a ruckus, um, trying to dismantle the government, things like that. So George Washington actually goes out there and sends some soldiers out there too to basically stop the rebellion. This incident really scared people because it made them go, "Wow, if this one thing, the whiskey tax, got enough people upset that they're going to attack the government, what's going to happen in 2 weeks when the government makes another law to try to collect money and someone else gets upset? They're going to do something just the same way as Shay did. They might start up a fight and try to throw out the government, you know." So that's when the people realized that the Articles of Confederation made the government really weak when the government needs to be stronger. Okay. All right, so here's your next question. How would you convince people or states to pay their taxes if you didn't have the power to force them? Okay, um, you can't really threaten them because they know what are you going to do? You can't do anything to me. You can't force me to pay taxes. So, how can you make people or states pay their taxes if you have no nothing to threaten them with? You really don't. So how do you convince them to pay their taxes? So this one does require some thinking, okay? I know this one might be a little bit hard for some of you guys, but I really want you to sit down and think, like even with like your little brothers, cousins, whatever, how can you make them do something without hurting them or threatening them, physically, and stuff like that? How can you make them do what you want? So think about that. Pause the video, but we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so now we come to your exit ticket. Do you think our government currently, right now, do you think it's too powerful? Do you think that they have their hand in all kinds of stuff and they're overstepping their bound? Do you think our government's just right? It's like, they're not too strong, but they're not too weak. Yeah, they're okay. Or do you think the government's not powerful enough? Hey, if we really want stuff done, the government needs more power. So which one do you feel is true? Do you feel our government is too powerful, just right, or not powerful enough? And why? Why do you believe that? Okay. So once you're finished with this exit ticket, you're done. You're done for the class. Okay. I can't wait to read them. Again, I love reading your guys' responses. Uh, I will see you guys later. See you in class. Okay. You guys take care. You be safe. All right.